looking at Unit 5 today. We're going to look at some verb forms, some prepositions, and some other just kind of miscellaneous grammatical structures and words and stuff. So let's dive into it. Got a bunch of stuff to cover this lesson, and let me blow this up a little bit and skip over a couple pages. Again, you'll see the structure sentences. We're going to start looking at this verb form called the perfective. This one's a pretty big one. It's similar to the simple past in English, where you're describing something that has been completed before now. So he went, you said, they laughed, they ate, we sang, anything like that. That's kind of the perfective form. It's an anchor form too, especially in not just in Amharic but other Semitic languages. It's usually what's used as the dictionary entry form, and it's also the base form that we use to kind of build out other forms from this as well. So rather than using the infinitive as we do in other languages, and it's the third person masculine singular that's used in particular in those dictionary forms. So the majority of these verbs have what's called three radicals, or basic continents. And what that I believe refers to is the Amharic characters. It took me a while, I think, when I was going through this book myself to make that connection, because I thought it was referring to how he transliterated it in this text, which doesn't quite line up, but my understanding is that he's referring to how it would look if you were actually reading it in Amharic. And of course, in this book, we're not reading any actual Amharic text, the Guz font. We're reading everything through English transliteration. So most verbs have that three basic continents, like falaga, but then you also have some that only have two radicals, like heda, or aya, and then there's some that have even more than that, 4 or 5, but those are usually pretty rare. It's mostly 3 or 2. So that's what covers 5.1. He summarizes the verbs that we've come across in the first 5 units, and you can see kind of the forms and how they appear, and then you'll see the actual conjugation of this. So running all the way through from first person to second person singular to third person singular to first, second, and third person plural for falaga on the left-hand side, aya, he saw, on the right-hand side. So you can see there for falaga, it's falagu, I saw, or I wanted. Falag, he wanted, or you wanted, that is, masculine. Falagsh, feminine, second person. Falagu is that second person, polite. And then third person, masculine, feminine, you have falaga, falagach, falagu, again, that polite form. And then for the plural side, it's falagn, falagachu, falagu. Then coming over to aya, same thing here. Ayahu, ayah, ayash, ayu, aya, ayach, ayen, we saw, ayachu, ayu. And the other thing you see too is how it looks differently, where, with falag, you have a stem that ends in a consonant, and then with aya, you have a stem that ends in a vowel. And so you can see how those different endings get attached in both cases. And then I think it rounds out, it gives you the actual just endings themselves on the next page, so you can see how it gets attached. And then they also give us the forms of the verb Allah, he exists or is present, which is present tense, but it takes the forms of the perfective. So it's the meaning is present, but the form suggests, it's completed past, simple past. So you have the conjugations here: Allahu, Allah, Allash, Allah, Allach, Allan, Allachu, Alu. Then moving into note 5.2, remember what we saw in unit 4 and note 4.2. We saw this with the masculine form. Now we're getting the feminine form. So you take that, going back up here, you take that third person feminine singular, alich, she is present. And from that, we string out all these other forms down here at the bottom of page 48. She exists, or for yelichim, she does not exist. And these are the forms for that verb that indicates when something feminine is being possessed or owned. So it corresponds to have and have not. So for this first part, it's for have, and then for this part, it's for have not. So alichin, alicha, alichish, and so on. And then for not having it, yelichinim, yelichihim, yelichishim, and so on for not having. So then we go into note 5.3. This one's also kind of a big one too, something to pay attention to here. The verb suffix pronouns, and then this kind of harkens back to unit 3, note 3.2.1. We learned a little bit about those suffix pronouns. We saw the noun suffix pronouns. Now we're looking at the verb suffix pronouns. So these are these are suffixes that go on the ends of verbs, and they indicate pronouns. And so in this case, we're talking about the direct object here. So what we're doing is essentially we're combining the subject and the direct object and the verb all in one word. So what's unique about Amharic is that you can have an entire sentence with just one word here. So to take this first example, falagut, I wanted him, it, that's a complete sentence, just kind of stand alone there. So we see the falag, that H there indicating the first person singular, and then, or the who first person singular, and then the T at the end, the T at the end indicates that third person masculine singular pronoun. So falagu is the I wanted part, and then the T is the him or it part. And so takes it one person at a time. So this first section is just for the first person, where it's just saying I wanted, and runs through all the different pronouns. So you can see how it looks when you want to say I wanted him or you, masculine, feminine, or I wanted her, or I wanted them, or I wanted you all. So it runs you through that. So falagut, falagu, falagush, and so on. And then same thing for ayahut, ayahu, ayahush, or ayosh, ayot, all the way down. So these pronouns are indicating the direct object, who's receiving the action. And then it runs it through for second person masculine. So if you want to say you, masculine, wanted me or them or us, or you saw me or them or us, you can see how it looks when you use those pronouns. So it's a good section here to kind of look over and review and study and reference. You'll want to come back to this and then probably bookmark it. Then 5.4, this is also builds off of those verb suffix pronouns. Sometimes you have a sentence like here, yehinkal yidgamut, where the noun yehinkal, this word is mentioned explicitly as the specific object of the sentence. And when it is, you don't need that verb suffix pronoun yidgamut, that t at the end. It's not necessary if you have the noun mentioned. And so when you do see that there, one, it's optional, and two, it indicates emphasis. So it's emphasizing, it's layering it on top of it. So you can say, it's kind of like saying, this pen, I wrote with it. You're adding that emphasis to it. So it's being used what's called an apposition, for emphasis. So it's being used where you also have a noun that's mentioned as a specific object, and yet they're still adding the pronoun, the verb suffix pronoun there. So just know that it's optional and it's used for emphasis. So Next is 5.5. This is where there are three prepositions mentioned. You have ka, which means from, iska, which is to or up to, and then la, which is for or to. And these can be used separately. Ka and iska sometimes are used together. So as we saw in this example, kahulet iskasa berno, from $2 to $4, or from $2 to $10. It is no. So it's from $2 to $10. Kahulet from $2, iskasar up to 10 or to 10. The idea is that it's directional. You're going up to a point. But these can be also used separately too. So, and sometimes you'll see that both. And then the preposition la is more for or to, not in a directional sense like with iska, but just more, more, I guess, a little more abstract, just to or for. And then 5.6, you have postpositions. These are a couple of words: wist, which means in or inside, and lie, which means on or upon. And these get added on to nouns that they're governing. So in the case of wist, Bazi Hotel Wist, inside this hotel, are there any rooms? Baro kaful alwat, are there any empty rooms? And then with a folk lie, no. With lie, it can be attached to the word or be separate, but it's going to be, a folk is floor or level. And so folk lie would be on that floor, on that level, or it could be even on anything else, on a bed, on a car. But anything like that, it's going to come right after that word that it's being attached to. So those are just two postpositions that you'll see throughout. Then we get to note 5.7, where we have a couple of suffixes added on to the noun so for man and sate for woman. So you have soyo and setioa, and that indicates it's a definite suffix, so it indicates the man, the woman. Sometimes it can kind of mean hey, you, hey, lady, or even just referring to a stranger. That when you're talking about that guy, sometimes you'll see that form that soye mentioned. That's how I've often heard it. People use it as well. So that's those definite suffixes. Then adding on top of that, you have that 3, 2, 1. In note 5.7, we have suffixes that are attached to so and sate, man, woman. And in the case of so, you have soyo, setioa. And these are added on to, these are kind of alternative forms. So you can either use so or soyo. You can use sate or setioa. Both kind of mean the same thing, but the latter has more of a connotation of distance. The author mentions here it can also kind of mean hey you or hey lady. The way I've heard people use it as well, it can refer to a person that they don't know, a stranger, that person over there, especially as they're telling a story and they're referring to someone they don't know, but someone maybe they observed, that person, that woman. You'll sometimes see that form used. And then just kind of building off of that, you add those definite suffixes to that. And then you have setio, setioa, it could be the, man, the woman. And then you can also add it on to other words like abat, abatio, inat, mother, inatioa. And it just gives that definite article to those nouns. Then 5.8, we got ordinals. So you have cardinal numbers are the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and then ordinals are the order. So that where we get the word ordinal. So that's first, second, third. So remember, cardinal 1, 2, 3. Ordinal is first, second, third. So we saw and hulet sost for cardinal. And then for ordinal, it's andinya, uletinya, sostinya. And that's pretty consistent all the way through. Then that kind of rounds it out. You get to the substitution correlation drills. I think this is a little bit different, where you sub in the different pronouns and then change the verb in order to agree with that. So that's added a little twist there, rather than just repeating what you're seeing. And that's a nice little practice to kind of help you master the conjugations and the forms. So with that, that kind of rounds it all out, and then we'll head over into Unit 6. Thanks for joining me on this, and heading on to Unit 6. Salam Nante Yuhun.